Hi, my name is Dale Kaplan, and I'm Vice President and Director of Photographs and Photo Books at Swann Auction Galleries. Today we're going to talk about Edward S. Curtis's The North American Indian, the highlight of our October 4th auction of fine photographs and photo books. We're very pleased to offer a complete set of Edward Curtis's masterpiece, The North American Indian, which is complete in 20 illustrated text volumes and 20 folios with more than 100 large format photogravures signed by Curtis himself. Curtis was born in Wisconsin in 1868 and moved with his father to Minnesota in the 1880s. Soon after, he relocated to Seattle, where he had an opportunity to journey, trek into the geographical area around Seattle and began to acquaint himself with Native culture. This is really the beginning of Curtis's understanding and interest in the Native American people. In 1899, he met Edward Harriman. The Harriman expedition to Alaska, for which Curtis was the official photographer, really opened his eyes to the notion of expedition photography and broadened his understanding about indigenous people. Curtis actually makes his first journeys into Native country in the early part of the 20th century, going to Montana with a colleague of his to photograph the Sundance, where apparently he experiences an epiphany. He has a personal transformation where he feels a connection with Native culture, and it begins to kind of percolate in his mind in terms of this idea of how the culture is disappearing. He then goes to the Southwest, to Acoma, to Canyon de Chelly, where he makes some beautifully iconic images, and perhaps one of the most important images associated with the North American Indian Project, a picture called The Vanishing Race, in which we see Indians on horseback riding into the horizon, the sunset, as it were. Perhaps his most important connection is his friendship with Theodore Roosevelt. At a point when Curtis begins to envision the project, he approaches Roosevelt directly to ask if he has any friends who might be interested in sponsoring such a project. And what Roosevelt does is draft a letter of reference, which Curtis then presents to J. Pierpont Morgan. And Morgan, as one of the most renowned bibliophiles of the early 20th century, was of course interested in this quote-unquote monumental thing that Curtis presents to him. J.P. Morgan promised Curtis the sum of $75,000, in exchange for which he would receive quite a number of sets of the North American Indian, as well as hundreds of large format and small format photogravures. Curtis begins his field research in 1905, 1906. With Morgan's patronage, a check is issued for him to go into the field with interpreters, assistants, and within a period of a few months, he's approaching Morgan for an additional payment. There is much more happening than perhaps anyone could have anticipated. And so by year 4 or 5, Curtis has exhausted the largesse of Morgan, and they begin, in a sense, to renegotiate so that the project can be continued and expanded. And in this regard, what becomes Curtis's responsibility is to raise money to continue the project. He's approaching collectors, institutions to subscribe to the set. He anticipated that 500 sets of the North American Indian would be published, but in the end, Curtis was unsuccessful at realizing a subscriber base of 500, and approximately 270 full sets were published. The set that we're offering is hand-numbered 113 of 500. It's a very desirable set for a number of reasons. The large format photogravures are on tissue, which is the most desirable and the rarest and the most delicate of the paper stocks. The other important feature of this set is all of the photogravure plates in folios 1, 4, and 5 are signed by Curtis, a total of 111 photogravures with his signature. The illustrated text volumes that were produced as part of the North American Indian were actually bound by Charles Lauriat. In 1935, the Lauriat Company of Boston bought the inventory and rights to the North American Indian, at which point they bound a number of the text volume sets in a very beautiful 3/4 leather binding. There's a decorative design along the spine and the names of the different tribes that correspond to that volume appear as well. When we open the book, we see a title page that features all the textual information as well as a symbol, a pictograph that corresponds to the tribal culture that's featured in that particular volume. The folios containing the large format photogravures are in their original bindings, and each of the folios has a letterpress table of contents which indicates the plate number as well as the title of the photogravure. As far as we know, this is the only set that contains more than 100 signed photogravures, and certainly the only set in which all of the photogravures in 3 folios are signed by the artist. The rarity of this set is reflected in the estimate of 1.25 to 1.75 million. Collectors of fine photographs, photo books, Americana, arts and crafts furniture, tribal arts, decorative arts would be interested in this set, perhaps for reasons unique to their field or collecting interests, but certainly Curtis's photographs and photo books have crossed over and have become the focus of a kind of interdisciplinary approach to collecting. Curtis was a charismatic figure who had a vision. His intention was to tell the story of the vanishing race, and the tribal cultures in all their diversity, in all their vivid detail, are rendered in this magnum opus. No production value is spared. No intention in terms of the final product is too small for him to take into consideration. The photogravures that are used represent the most sophisticated photographic reproduction technique. The vision behind this work is such that it fully embodies Curtis's life and Curtis's aesthetic. The October 4th sale includes excellent examples of vintage and classical photography, in addition to contemporary artworks and photo books. This is the first time that Swann Galleries has offered a complete full set of the North American Indian. It's a rare opportunity to see an American masterpiece and preview the other images in our sale.